Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome to this session titled Can Your Online Course Benefit from a Strategic Plan? I hope you've all been having a good time and learning a lot at the Rutgers Online Learning Conference. And I hope this session helps you in your daily work and working with other faculty, working with instructional designers, and working across the university. Um, So we're going to talk. We're going to basically talking about online course quality frameworks today, but I'm going to come at it with a slightly different approach than we typically all are using. But this is a sort of an expanded approach I'm going to be talking about. So obviously, we are all working on sustaining a quality learning experience in our online courses, and that requires not just a one and done design and development, but ongoing checking, ongoing vigilance on a lot of folks' perspectives. Um, Most of the approaches I'd say that we're all using, emphasize universal design learning principles and instructional design principles with a focus on online course design and pedagogy and a really tight alignment of the learning objectives, engagement, activities, assessments, materials, and most especially the technologies that we're using in our online courses. And you probably, like most folks, are using a lot of rubrics and a lot of checklists. I'm just going to drop a question here in the chat. It's an opportunity as we start out the session here to share with us the approaches that you're using at your in your department, in your course, at your institution to ensure online course quality. Um, But what I'd like to do today is sort of take a little bit of a new perspective on quality frameworks. So our current approaches are rubric based, checklist based, focused on the items that I mentioned on course design and pedagogy. Certainly all great tools leading us to great online courses with quality. But there, like anything, there's great aspects, but there are some limitations, and so some of those limitations in our typical approaches these days is, lots of times it's making a change, making a revision is very transactional. It's in the moment, or it occurs by a faculty member from one trimester to the next. These are, usually pretty small enhancements, small adjustments, many of them based on student performance and feedback, on course evaluations, sometimes designed based on the individual instructor's observations. But they're also our rubrics and our checklists are often disconnected from some of the many other dimensions that go into the quality of a course, whether it be online or in person. And lots of times, the folks that are working on ensuring the quality is includes a very limited perspective. The faculty member who teaches a particular course, or the many faculty who teach a course, and perhaps an instructional designer. And this approach that we use can tend to be reactive rather than proactive. What I'd like to do today is go through an expanded approach that broadens our field of view from just the online course to the online course plus the environment that it's sitting in. And I don't just mean the online environment, I mean the environment of the program in which it's situated, the department, the institution, the many wraparound services, the different assessments that are involved in your courses, resource availability, long term strategic planning by the university. So, a very bigger view than we've been taking in online course quality. So, in this new approach, I'm asking us to think about a higher order, a long term, and a multi year strategic plan. Not setting aside what you're already doing, but thinking about something in addition to what you've been doing, or that what you've been doing can roll into this new approach. Thinking about not just our standard online course updates and enhances, but really thinking about course renewal, online course renewal, and all that goes with that word. And taking into consideration this wider range of quality dimensions and perspectives. In the end, we'd have a comprehensive plan to improve or to renew a course that does a couple of things. It ensures course quality, ensures course currency and relevance. Um, a spillover effect is that it helps to establish a culture of continuous improvement, and you're getting a bigger picture impact beyond the course, getting an alignment between the course and institutional goals, priorities, and initiatives. And as you'll see, this is a fair amount of work. So, giving us even pacing, a doable pacing of workload and resources over time. So, what other dimensions are we talking about? There's a lot here, and this is a sample. I'm sure you can come up with many more, whether in these dimensions or other dimensions. So, first of all, other dimensions would be academic aspects. So, thinking about program goals and how they relate to the course outcomes, your program's course sequence and scope, program assessment plans. What's the actual content of the course? And do you have diverse perspectives within the content delivery, within the course materials? The digital environment in which all of this is happening, not just the technologies and the environment, but making sure that everything's really seamlessly integrated for the student and for the faculty member. The course being career relevant, so currency and relevance of the coursework to particular degrees, to particular disciplines after graduation, career skills and knowledge, and being in touch with industry trends and making sure that those are built into the courses. Engagement. If you're an online professional, you know the really important role that engagement plays in an online course. Faculty presence and a sense for students of community and connection, which is really important in terms of retention and persistence through the course. Student support. So we all have lots of student support, wraparound services for students, but rather than being standalone, to what extent are they and can they be embedded in your online courses? So, tutoring, library services, advisors, academic advisors being present in the courses, career services being present in your online courses. That ever important and often nebulous dimension of the student experience that sometimes is very individualized, sometimes based in perception, but really that ease of use, responsiveness that they perceive, whether we've got equitable practices, an inclusive environment, and all of that leading to student satisfaction. And then there's institutional factors, making sure that we're considering the course in the context of the institution, its plan, its goals, its priorities, and initiatives. I'm sure that many of you have cross curricular initiatives on common skills, common approaches, common knowledge base, but cut across disciplines. Thinking about those as well in the online course quality. So that's a lot of dimensions. That's a lot of work. That's a lot more that is on our typical rubrics and checklists. And so that presents some challenges, obviously. First of all, workload. This approach is beyond the time, especially between trimesters, and the resource capacity of individual faculty members. Um, Finding the best alignment between this approach and particular courses and particular scenarios. You don't want to use this with everything. There's just not enough time in the day and not enough resources. So finding that best fit is a challenge. And another challenge is a lack of an organizing mechanism oftentimes. We've got for our online course design and pedagogy, we've got these really well-defined rubrics and checklists, but this is definitely a wider view of those factors, and those factors are going to probably be different depending upon the course, depending upon the institution. So, the lack of an clear organizing mechanism can be a challenge here. So, when is a good time to use this approach? So, let's just get our mindset on when to use it, when not to use it. So, good times to use it. After your course has been running for several years, you know, that's a good time. You've driven it a while, you've kicked the tires quite a bit. You're beginning to see not just little areas for tweaks, but maybe some bigger improvements. When there's been big changes externally or big changes internal to the institution that might impact the course. That's another good time to try this approach because it's the bigger picture that's impacting you here. Significant new advancements in your field of study, significant changes in the program. So the context, the purpose of the course within the program may have changed as a follow up to a program review or an accreditation self study visit. And then, if there's some new institutional, departmental, or program initiative, these are all good times to consider this approach. And one of the reasons it's a good time is that these processes inherently bring together teams of people and resources and a continuous improvement mindset that you can co-purpose for the updating, the revision, the renewal of a course. These are not situations in which usually an individual faculty member is left on their own to make significant changes. So these are a good time to capitalize on the extra people, the extra resources coming to bear. So, one of the approaches that gives us that missing mechanism, that lack of a clear mechanism, could be a strategic planning process. And it brings with it a bunch of different benefits as we begin to think about this comprehensive approach to course improvement. It provides clarity by setting priorities for us. It I know that list of factors look very big, but by going through the process, you get whittled down to and focused on the most essential things that perhaps need some attention. It gives you both short term and long term plans. So while the list may look big, it gives you a mechanism for chunking the work out. Doesn't all have to be started, doesn't all have to be done anytime soon. Gives you a mechanism, clear criteria for setting priorities, making decisions, and from that leads to efficiency of all this work that might need to be done and how you're going to um, involve other people and how you're going to use the resources. Um, and also, because you got a lot of different people in this mix of strategic planning when it comes to a course, it's going to help with that coordination and that alignment across departments, across the organization. It also gives you an opportunity to really take a step back, look at the course, look at the environment the course is operating in, and and think about and anticipate those trends that might be coming at you in the future, that might be coming at the course in the future, and to respond to those in a planful way, very proactively rather than being reactive. Oops. All right, there we go. And I know that many of you have been involved in strategic planning before, and it's usually at the organizational level. And you're probably thinking, strategic plans don't apply to courses. I don't see how this framework works. But if you just take a step to the side for a moment and think about the elements of a strategic plan, mission, vision, value statements, goals, objectives, action plans, and SWOT analysis. I think when you come and now think about the elements of a course, you can find analogous elements of a course that would fit with the strategic planning process. So, for example, the mission, vision, value statements of a strategic plan, it's kind of what your course description is about. It's the purpose of the course, it's the role of the course in the curriculum. You have these analogous elements in a strategic plan and a course. While they may use different words, their purpose is well aligned. So, going to talk a little bit now, actually, for the rest of the time, on how to develop a course strategic plan. I'm going to walk through some templates and some examples. So, a SWOT template, a feedback checklist, an action plan template, and a course strategic plan template. All these are available. All you got to do is email me, and happy to send them to you. There's a bunch of different ones in each category, so feel free to email me if you're interested in those. So I'm sure that many of you, if not most of you, have been involved in a SWOT analysis in the past. And as you know, that's simply a strategic planning technique that allows you to identify and assess the various factors that, in this case, impact the quality of your online course. It helps you really understand what the current state is, what's going on right now, what could be better, determine where to go next, and help you determine what you're going to do to achieve that final desired state after the course renewal process. You're going to We're going to identify internal strengths and weaknesses in their relation to external opportunities and threats. And again, this is all at the course level, not at the institution level, not at the organization level. This is at the level of your course. Let me just stop for a moment and check the chat here. Okay. Thanks everybody who's sharing their strategies. This is great. A lot of different strategies out there, as reflected in your chat comments. So, we're going to conduct the SWOT analysis of our course. You may think, okay, that's going to be the faculty member who's going to do some brainstorming and is going to ask these questions. What's the course strengths? What are the weaknesses? What opportunities are available to positively impact the course? And what threats are there that could negatively impact the course? But it needs to be more than the faculty, the one or two, the three or four faculty member that teach this course. It needs to be a much, much broader group with different perspectives on the course, different perspectives on the student experience in the course to give you a really robust understanding of the current state of the course, your future vision for the course and how you're going to bridge that gap. You start with our brainstorming and then or in parallel, usually, gathering all sorts of additional information that's going to help you make decisions and chart the course ahead. So that's objective data and subjective expert insights. It's quantitative, it's qualitative. And as I said, you got multiple stakeholders and multiple perspectives involved. You really want as much information as you can get to inform your SWOT analysis. And then you're going to organize all of this in a SWOT matrix or something else. There's a number of different ways you can organize the information. I'll get to that in a second. So I said we're going to do those brainstorming questions, but we're also going to gather additional information, gather additional feedback. And this is an option. At this point, I'll go through some of these options for gathering more information, sources of information. But as you're looking at this list, just drop a couple of notes in the chat if you would about other sources of information that you can think of applying to this approach. Maybe specific to your course, maybe specific to your university, but just drop some of those additional ideas in here. So obviously, there's what the faculty member observes every day, what they observe the students having problems with, where the students are excelling. Then there's also the opportunity, if you don't do this already, to try it, to have other faculty give you feedback. So it could be a faculty member who you just invite in to look at your course in action. Could be a faculty peer mentor, somebody that you're working with more closely. It also, many times we forget to do this, is to talk to the faculty who are teaching courses that come after your course and courses that come before yours to see how their experience and how those courses are linking together. Are they seeing students in the downstream courses have trouble in what they should have learned in your course? Student feedback, that comes in many, many different forms, as you know, learning assessment results. Um, Also talking with a variety of folks at your institution. And you'll see in this list on the right side, don't forget to reach out to the other people that interact with your students because lots of times there's information gleaned from their interactions with your students about your course. Tutoring, academic advising. They're going to be hearing from students about the troubles that students are having, the really problematic course areas, the areas that they're really stumped, where they need more support. Career services, thinking, helping you think about relevance and currency as related to the workplace. Um, the whatever your unit is that assists students in tech support or online course support, LMS administration, all of that. Reach out to those folks to hear where your students are getting stuck on the technology pieces. Similarly, instructional designers, instructional technologists, talk to your assessment director. Ask your accessibility director to take the look at your course. What are they seeing that you are not seeing? Um, and then obviously always be checking, maybe if you have industry advisory boards that can help you with some additional information and be cross checking to those institutional goals and plans. So we do the brainstorming. We've got analysis of information, lots of extra information. Organize it in something that looks like this. A SWOT matrix is a common tool. You could also simply use lists. You could use Venn diagrams because sometimes the factors that you identify actually overlap. Some strengths are also opportunities, some weaknesses are also threats. So there's no one right way or wrong way to organize the information. Couple things just to remind ourselves that strengths and weaknesses, those are things internal to the course or internal to the institution, whereas those opportunities and threats are outside the course. So here's an example of a SWOT analysis is of a course, a very brief SWOT analysis. Certainly more can go into one and usually does. But just look at some of the strengths here. This is where you and the others you've talked with think the course is doing really great. Wide range of student engagement opportunities. Students give you great, strong course evaluations. Lots of embedded student support and UDL principles well incorporated. Now, some weaknesses. These are areas definitely to think about for improvement. You'll see some assessment problems here. You'll see a low student connection and sense of community in the course. Those are areas for maybe some design enhancements, some outdated pedagogy approaches, um, So those are kind of all online course design elements. But then we take a step back here and we've got two that are related to quality, but not necessarily related to the online environment. So those downstream courses where students were supposed to learn something from your course, they're not doing too well in those pre-assessment scores in those courses. That tells you something's amiss. Opportunities, those are things external to your course. So things about, the LMS, they always have lots of features or new features. What can you be utilizing there? Something may come up in the program accreditation that gives you a new opportunity to capitalize on. And your advisory boards, if you have those external, they always have expertise that the faculty member may be missing. Some examples of threats might be if you're in a field that has rapidly evolving content areas. So if anybody teaches a course on artificial intelligence, that changes daily, I believe. Um, New requirements, new external compliance requirements, especially when it comes to technology. Changing costs for technology that might be embedded in your courses. And certainly competition on the outside may be a factor for you to consider. The list could go on and on and on here. The list is likely going to vary in each one of these domains, each one of these quadrants, based on your course, based on the purpose of the course, based on the content, based on how long it's been since the course last underwent a full renewal process. So you've done that analysis, you've got it organized. Um, Now it's time to really think about it, not just make the list, but to synthesize and analyze all that information. Um, and one of the things to think about here is, so what are your priorities going forward? That sets your goals. Not everything that's in that SWOT analysis is something you're going to do something about. There's going to be a lot of ideas, a lot of problems that you might want to address, but not all of them need to get done in the next 1, 2, 3 to 5 years. Some of them are things you don't need to touch at all. Some are going to be things that's really a much, much longer time frame consideration. So you're going to get a robust list, but you don't have to attack all of it. That's the purpose of priorities and goals, is to really focus and whittle down. Um, you're going to set those priorities based on the SWOT analysis you did, the academic goals and priorities. So, the academic goals and priorities of that course, of the program, institutional goals and priorities, and the the capacity to make the changes that are needed and the resources that are needed to make changes. So, and I'm not talking about individual people. I'm talking about teams of people. I'm talking about the institution as a whole. Sometimes the the knowledge, the skills, the money that's needed to make the ideal change you want to make simply isn't there, simply isn't available. So all of these have to be considered in the mix. And uh, with all these perspectives in the mix, you're probably going to get differing ideas of what is top priority and what's low priority, what really needs to be done a certain way, where there's some flexibility. So each institution, each department, each faculty member is going to really need to navigate that dynamic, because you're going to have a lot of ideas and a lot of perspectives in the mix. After you've set those priorities and goals, you're going to develop some strategies and action plans to get to where you want to be, to make the improvements in the course that you want to make. And there's going to be a lot of them. You saw there's a long list, so there's going to be a lot of strategies and a lot of action plans. It's going to be then a matter of determining the sequencing of those and the phasing of them. Some of these, recognizing, could take a couple of weeks, couple of months. You can knock them out quickly. Others, because of how intensive they are time wise and resource wise, could take you a year, could take you 2 years to fully implement. So, thinking about the priorities in the context of the timing, the resources, that's what's going to determine your sequencing and the phases. So, one way to approach this, you've got you've you've got your um, SWOT analysis. You've looked at all of it, and you've now come to the point of making decisions about what's priority and what you're going to do about it. So, this is one possible template that you could use. We call it the course action plan template. And for each one of the items in that SWOT analysis that you decided you're going to follow up on, these are the kinds of things you would put in it. First of all, you need to prioritize it. Otherwise, it's just one big list, which gets a little overwhelming. High, medium, or low. Keep it simple. I know you can get lots of gradations in between high and low, but just keep those buckets very simple. Identify for yourself whether it's a strength, a weakness, an opportunity, or threat. Knowing that, keeping that in mind, may help frame what you decide to do and when you decide to do it. It also lets you know what's under your control and what is external and beyond your control, which may influence the sequencing, the timing of what you do. Item is simply what the SWOT analysis showed. What's going to be your goal as a result of that information? What's going to be your follow up actions to achieve the goal? And to achieve that goal through these actions, who needs to be involved and what resources do you need? That's a really important piece to think through at the beginning. Because as I said before, if you haven't thought that through, some things are simply not going to be doable or not doable the way or in the time frame that you're planning at the outset. Think carefully about approximately how long it's going to take to complete this action. Are we talking about weeks? Are we talking about days? Are we talking about weeks? Are we talking about months or years? That's a really important component here to the planning. Then, so you're going to do this, but then there's actually two parts. There's that period of work. You're working to make the improvement. Others are working to make the improvement. That all takes quite a bit of time. And then there's the date when it actually gets implemented, when it's ready and it launches. Those are two very important and very different milestones that it's good to have in mind. So I'm going to give you a couple of example action plans based on that example SWOT matrix that we looked at earlier. So one of them it's a high priority based on this course and the environment of this course. It's an external threat, and that is the new state and federal video accessibility requirements. Uh, this is a bit of an older example. I'm not suggesting that suddenly today or this week there are new state and federal video accessibility requirements. I'm just saying that this is the item that we were responding to. The goal is to ensure that all the videos in the course meet those accessibility requirements. There were a lot of videos in this course. It took quite a while to get there. So, what are you going to do to meet that goal? Really break it down into steps. The action is not make the videos accessible. There's a lot of little details before you get to that roll up statement. So, actions could be conduct an accessibility audit of all the videos. That could be done by Could be done by the course faculty member, could be done the instructional designer and accessibility services director, all of them working individually or working collectively. And then once that's done, developing a plan, timeline, what needs to be done, which courses, to ensure that the videos are accessible, and then implementing that timeline. So, multiple steps within that overarching action plan to achieve the goal. You'll see that resource and people here, again, twofold. So, we know who needs to be involved in the audit: course faculty, instructional designer, and accessibility services director. But until we get that audit, we don't know exactly what video resources, what technology resources, and the workload that's going to be involved. So sometimes you can do an interim plan. Sometimes you're going to have to wait and to finish that plan until you get the first couple of steps done. On this one, the timeline was 1 to 2 years because there were a lot of videos. So again, break that work period down based on the two phases: audit and the enhancement period, and then setting the implementation date. So high priority, want to get it done, really important to get it done. It's an external threat because it's a compliance item, but it's going to take quite a while to get there. So not everything that's high priority, just remember, not everything that's high priority can be achieved very quickly. So another example, we did a high, let's do a medium level priority. This one is an internal weakness. This is about those downstream courses and that pre-assessment test with the low scores. So the goal is to improve those pre-assessment scores. Action items, again, is a multi-step process here. First, analyzing the learning objectives and the content of both courses and being mindful when you're doing that. So that's an academic item, but being mindful that that is all happening in the online learning environment. So always keeping in mind the lens through which you're looking all these factors, which is the online digital environment. Also looking at that tool. So you're going to look at those results in that tool, but look at the questions that are in that tool also. And then adapting the learning objectives and the course content and the pedagogy and the activities and the assessments to be better aligned from your course with what the downstream course needs. Um, Faculty from both courses, assessment director is a good person to bring into. Remember, keeping the perspectives broad, not just specific to those involved in the course, but involving many other perspectives and eyes here. And we'll go through one last example. This is a low priority item. Uh, this, while it sounds great in the grand scheme of all the things that were mentioned in the SWOT, this is one to put off till later. Other things were of higher priority, of bigger impact, of more important consequence than this. Not that this is not important, but it just didn't rise to the this high of a level. So this low priority and external opportunity. So a recognition um, in the SWOT analysis that the advisory board members are great and they have expertise that the course faculty member doesn't have. And so the goal here is to use those advisory board experts to supplement instruction. The action here is to develop a crosswalk and do a gap analysis of where specifically the faculty member is the expert and where they could use some support from those advisory board members. This you'll see very quick estimated timeline, 1 month to complete this analysis, identify the advisory board people to help and get them trained up. 1 month, but in the grand scheme of all the other work to do coming out of the strategic plan, this gets put off till much, much later. Again, based on priorities, goals, and priorities. So then you've got your individual course action plans, and then they all get synthesized into one big course strategic plan template, organizing them by priority level, and then mapping out when you're going to be doing the work. Remember, strategic plan is usually a 3 to 5 year look. Sometimes in these course plans, you're looking doing a 2 to 4 year look or a 2 to 3 year look, but you've got a long range look here, not trimester to trimester. So high, medium, or low, and when the work is going to happen, and when everything's going to launch. So this is an example of what your strategic plan might look like. Again, high priority items are staged earlier and implemented earlier, with lower priority items staged later and implemented later. And there's a certain amount of discipline involved in this phasing process, because it's easy to say, oh, that's just going to take a couple of weeks, that's just going to take a month, we'll squeeze that into year one. Well, actually, the stuff you've got planned for year one is pretty work intensive, pretty time and labor intensive. It's going to be really tough to squeeze that in. It takes some discipline to really focus and on the priority items early, and to have the discipline to hold off on starting those lower priority items until later. So we'll finish up here in the last couple of minutes, and I'll get over to the chat. I see there's a bunch of questions. I hope for takeaways you've seen more than, wow, this is a lot of work. I hope that you see that this approach to online course quality really gives you a holistic and a comprehensive perspective for course renewal, about the student experience, where your course is now, and where it can go, and give you the roadmap to get there. It can give you a nice organizing framework for these complex relationships of one course to another, of one course within a university-wide initiative, of one course within a program. This is an approach that's especially amenable to these large courses, large enrollment, multi-section courses that we all have. You get a good bang for your buck here. When you've got, for example, entry-level gen ed courses, or uh, gateway courses within programs. These are great courses for this approach. Whenever you've had a significant change in the course or the program or the institution, this is a great approach. And then at the bigger picture level, you've got some benefits through this approach. You've obviously the institutional alignment, which we've talked about, but also through this approach, you foster a cross functional collaboration of online units and units that are not specifically online focused. So, for example, you foster cross functional collaboration between the online program and assessment professionals, online program and career services. So, one's a cross functional collaboration between online dedicated and not online dedicated units and professionals. It also helps foster and facilitate that forward thinking and planning on a multi year basis rather than from trimester to trimester or year to year. It helps facilitate thinking of individuals and departments on the long range. Think about really where you want to be in 3 to 5 years. That's not a simple skill. That takes some time to hone, and then to back your way up into the actions that are going to get you there. And then obviously through all of this, it helps to strengthen the culture of online continuous improvement, which is what this is all about. Let me scroll back up to the chat. Happy to take any questions. So let's see. So um, if you would like, let me take care of this one first. If you would like any the slides or the templates, you can just email me. The slides are in the conference app, but feel free to email me. I'm happy to reach out to you. Also, the templates, I'm happy to share those. Okay. Um, be great to hear from some of you. Can you see that some aspects of this approach would be useful to you, to your program, to your institution, and which aspects and under what circumstances? Let's see for downstream. There needs to- so that's a great question, Karen. How to build that kind of engagement between um, the person who's teaching, so you and others teaching the course you teach, and the faculty that teach upstream courses and the faculty that teach downstream courses. So, a great way to organize that, a great organizing scheme is the program review process, because these are not discrete courses. They are courses in a sequence with specific scope and should be linked to one another. The program review process is an ideal, ideal setting and activity to begin to foster that kind of thinking, that kind of collaboration, that kind of looking at each other's courses and how each other's courses impact upstream or downstream courses. So that's just a great way to approach it because it's not about you, it's not about how you teach, it's about the program as a whole and the parts that others hold besides you. So I hope that's useful, but that program review process can be really helpful for this process. Let's see, I see OLC as a structure here. Okay. QM and now OOSCQR. I think that's a SUNY system approach. Okay. Okay. We are just about 2 minutes. I know it came to an abrupt end. I just wanted to make sure that we got everything in and gave you a chance for questions. I think if you were interested in trying this approach, again, be very judicious. This is not for every course. It's a lot of work. I think the first thing I would suggest is to really think about where could this be the most impactful. You get the most bang for your buck, the most bang for your workload. And then that would be, step one. And then I think step two is just take a step back, do a little personal refresher on the strategic planning process. And every time you read something that says organizational goal or organizational structure, just cross that out and think course. So take your view from really big to very small with the course. I said we were going to broaden our view beyond just course design and pedagogy, and we are doing that. But just think about strategic planning from the standpoint of a discrete course, and all those factors. So um, it looks like we're just about finished up here. The recording will also be available in the conference app. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to hang around afterwards. Or feel free to email me. Again, thank you for your time today. I appreciate all the comments here, suggestions, and I hope you have a great rest of the conference.